hit the record button. Now, welcome everybody to our last meetup for the year. And I must say, we haven't done a webinar in the last 3 months. So it's great to be back and to have our wonderful Deepa join us. So we are the Discovering Agile community. We are the organizers of Agile Dialogue Mississauga and Coaching Gathering in GTA. Today we have Deepa joining us, and I've tried to challenge myself to say her last name, and I'm still not going to try to say it. I'll leave it to her to tell you her last name. Deepa, as I met her a couple of months ago, and she was awesome. The way she spoke to me, the way she made me feel as if she's known me for ages was something that drew me to her. And that's what I'm going to share with you today. I will let her again share with you a personal life, but I wanted you to know about my connection with her. And I am so eager to listen to her and how she creates awesomeness at work and at life. Thank you, Deepa, and welcome. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kemi. Really, really appreciate the warm welcome. And like you said, the feeling was mutual. It felt like, even though, by the way, I do have to admit, right? Like, I think Kemi missed a small part there. We connected in LinkedIn over 2 years ago. Uh, Accepted the connection request, and there was a message that was tagged along from Kemi to me, which I failed to respond 2 years ago. I'll raise my hand and I'll admit the mistake. And for some reason, 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago, I was scrolling through my LinkedIn messages just to, keep up with the people. And I saw Kemi's message and I felt, oh my gosh, so bad. So I responded back to her after 2 years. So, I mean, I think Kemi said, like, it's better late than never, right?
Yes.
And thank you. I really enjoyed talking to her, and we felt such a special connection that day. So, and I really appreciate Kemi for giving me a platform and an opportunity today to come and share a passionate topic. It's a topic that I uses in my day-to-day life, not only in my work but also in my life. Um, and I'm very, very excited to do that. So before I do that, I wanted to do a small bit of an icebreaker. I know we talked about names. Is it okay, Kemi, if we just do a very quick icebreaker before we jump onto the presentation itself? Yeah, awesome. For this, I need you to just do a breakout with just two people in a room. And before you do that, I just want to give the instructions to people. So the name of the game we are going to play is called What's in Your Name? So the game itself is intended where you two people are partnering up. Each of you take like maybe a minute or so. What you're going to tell the other person is, what's your first name? Who gave that name to you? Why was that name given to you? And what's the meaning behind your name? That's all you're going to answer. And the other person will have the opportunity to do the same for you. And then I'll see you all back here in the presentation. You all good with the instructions?
Yeah, I think I already gave all the information now
That's
about
all
my
right,
name.
Flawad. You're special. So go for it, man.
Yep.
Can you repeat the
Get
Okay.
me
instructions?
their name. Give me two people in
Okay,
the
no
breakout
problem.
room, please.
Can you repeat the
Okay, sure.
instructions, please?
Sorry, somebody asked a question?
Yeah, can you please repeat the instructions?
Yes. So you're going to share what your first name is, who gave you that name, what's the meaning behind the name, and why was it given to you?
I'm ready now. I'm going to open the breakout rooms. How many minutes would you like in the room?
Maybe 2 minutes, please.
2 minutes. Okay, doke. All right.
And if you're
Open it.
done sooner, join back.
Okay. Pradeepa, you don't have to move. Although I assigned you to some rooms. Oh, she went. Okay, great. I have you back now. You're muted.
Sorry. Thank you.
Okay.
Our dresses are kind of looking a little similar. I love it.
Colors.
They're coordinated.
I had to put a jumper. I realized my, let me pause this.
Yeah, so I was already in a room with Shruti, and unfortunately she was on mute all this time.
Oh,
I tried to say hi, but nothing. So all this
sorry
time it
about
was
this,
just
Raleigh.
silent. That's okay.
I attended a meetup where there was a technique that was used. I could have introduced that. I think we have everyone back in the room, Deepa.
Okay, awesome. All right. This is this technique is nothing to do with my topic for today, the icebreaker that you all did, but this is something. It's one of my favorite icebreaker because when we are in a situation when we are working with other people, especially when we wanted to create good relationships, knowing somebody, especially their name, our main identity is our name, right? Like, that's how we are called. And that's our first identity. And getting to understand what our name stands for and what it means, even though, some people are very hesitant to say my last name, or, some people are very, I don't remember, I know you, but I don't remember. But when we introduce ourselves more than just our name, a meaning behind or what it means and things like that, the chances of you remembering them, at least the facts, especially if it's interesting, right, is really, really high. And that way, it starts, people will know that, like, okay, I am, oh, that person remembers my name, or they remember this small intimate detail that I shared with them. And it actually increases the respect. And, it's a great way to start a good relationship, actually. I've tried that, I've tested that, and I do this, and people love this game. It's such a simple game, right? Something that you can try it at work or anywhere for that matter, right? Even in family gatherings, see how many people know what the meaning behind their names is and who gave it and stuff like that. Awesome. All right. So sorry. So we are going to talk a little bit about how do we create amazing relationships, right? That's the topic. I just added work and life because we all can use amazing relationships in anywhere in our life, right? So I'm going to present a very simple concept. It seems simple, but that's what it is, right? I'm going to present a very simple concept that you can take on and that you can implement almost immediately in your life, right? Because I believe in using things that are not super complicated, right? I believe in using things that are very simple, that are easy to understand and easy to implement, right? So this is what my plan for today is. By the way, I know a lot of you are on mute, and Kemi has volunteered to look into the chat window. Please, Kemi, I'm not looking at the chat window, so if there are any questions that are coming by, or if, by the way, I'm a very interactive presenter in nature. So please, if you have a question, Kemi, what can we agree on if somebody has a question and if they want to ask right then and there?
I think they could put a Q before the question, so I know that's a question and I can read it out.
Okay, or
Yeah.
would we allow the person itself to ask the question?
That would be great if you don't mind them interrupting you. Yes, they can
Yeah,
unmute
no
themselves.
problem.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, no problem. If you have a question that you really want to ask, maybe there's a hand raise feature, right? Like, you know,
That's
people
right.
can use the hand raise feature. Does everybody know where that is?
Yes.
Perfect. Awesome. So please use that and let's make it as interactive as possible. Deal?
Deal.
All right. Thank you. Cool. Awesome. A little bit about me. Right. I don't think many of you know me, or if you know me, I'm grateful for you. That this is who I am. Right. I'm an Agilist by heart. I've been in the Agile space. I've been in the technology space for way too long, I guess, for 20 years now, or a little over 20 years, I should say. But at least in the Agile space, from what I remember, very much since 2006. So grown in that space. I'm a technical person. You know, I started as a Java developer, very much a technical person, then came into testing. And then from there, I kind of switched roles and became a coach. And then that's where I am. That's where I am today. So very much an Agilist at heart. That's really, really helpful for me in my life because I'm never afraid of experimentations. I lead my life and my business with a lot of experimentations. So that really helps, to be honest. You know, and right now, these days, at least for a good portion of last 3 or 4 years, I've been quite a bit focusing on developing leaders. I'm a professional coach, so I work with executives and leaders. So even I have 2 jobs. I can say I have a corporate job. I know I'm a leadership and executive coach right now at Toyota. And I also have my private coaching practice as a life coach. So I lead both of that. So I'm very much a coach these days. And one of the special things that I've been doing, that I've been voicing in the last, I would say, good 3 or 4 years is I'm speaking a lot on infertility and adoption, something that I've personally gone through in my life. And you know, I even wrote a book recently that was published earlier this year. So check it out. Infertility Can Suck Less. It's available on Amazon. And you know, I speak even, you know, in November of last year, I had the honor of speaking at a TEDx conference. I was invited to speak. So I speak a lot. I love speaking, you know, and I really wanted to lend my voice to these subjects, especially they are not widely talked about with regards to, you know, how much taboo and how much stigma there is around these subjects, right? Infertility and adoption per se. So that's a little bit about me. My LinkedIn link is there. So if you and I are not connected, so please feel free to connect with me. I would appreciate that. And we can take our connection just beyond this hour and a half that I'm going to be spending with you. All right. So I am going to start with a story for all of you. So I want to tell a story about John, the manager. By the way, I've tweaked the name. That John is not the person's real name. I may have changed the sex as well. So many months ago, a few months ago, I would say 5 or 6 months ago, I was coaching a leader, and this person was a very senior executive. And, you know, during our coaching conversation, they were very frustrated when they came to our conversation. They were really frustrated about one of the person who is reporting to them, right? So this person is a very senior level executive, and there are a lot of senior level managers who report into this person, right? So, if you kind of think about this hierarchy, this person was very upset about one of them. We ended up talking about this, and I asked him, like, John, what's going on? And he was, like, I'm really frustrated. This person is not doing what they are supposed to be doing. They should know what they're supposed to be doing, and you know, they're just not meeting any of my expectations. Right? It's just happening, and I'm very frustrated with this person. We had multiple conversations. I told him what is that I'm expecting out of him. Somehow it's just not happening, right? Just this was going a little bit, right? Like he was just venting a little bit. And I kind of stopped him and asked him, like, John, okay, so what are some of the things that you're expecting out of him? Right? He kind of gave me a list, right? And for that, even before that, he said, like, oh, and I asked him a follow-up question, like, does he know what you're expecting out of him? And he said, like, why should I tell him? He should, right? He's part of this organization. He's been a senior level, this kind of manager for such a long time. I shouldn't be telling him. He knows what he's supposed to be doing, right? And fast forward, right? That was our conversation. Very upset, senior level manager, very upset on the person who's reporting, expecting the person to know what that person is supposed to be doing. And when I challenged that, it was coming back like, I don't have to tell him. He should know this already, right? And just to make the matters to that next level, ultimately, the person John was talking about was put on performance plan, right? Meaning this person is not performing up to the expectations, and we are going to put him on that plan, right? So that's where that story went, right? And the reason why I want to share this story is a lot of organizations, a lot of people, especially a lot of leaders that I work with, that I coach, right, walk around with set of expectations for people. Walk around with set of expectations for people, right? And what happens is when you walk around with set of expectations, right? And in John's case, John wasn't even telling what he's expecting, right? And he is not telling everything that he's expecting from this person that he was upset about. Oh, do you have conversations? Yeah, I had conversations. Are you all on the same page? He should know, right? That was John's argument over and over again. Right? He should know what I'm talking about. He's been with this company, right? He knows what he's responsible for. Why should I keep telling him? Right? So people walk around with expectations a lot, right? And what happens, right? What happens when people walk around with expectations a lot? Any takers? Anybody wants to unmute?
They get disappointed. So a conflict created because there's no communication and no expectation shared. So a lot of conflicts.
Yeah, absolutely. I see Mary saying friction. Yes, Pooja is saying communication. And Basil, you said they get disappointed. Absolutely. Right? Absolutely. Right? That's exactly what John was feeling that day. He was completely disappointed. He was very frustrated to a point he was angry at the person. Right? He was very angry with the person. Okay? So these are all some of the outcomes, right? This is an individual activity, right? Like I want all of you to take a paper, and we are going to use the output of this one later. So please take some time. Maybe we can give like a minute or so. I want you to write, it may sound weird, write in a paper all the people in your life. It doesn't matter where they are all, work or friends or personal, doesn't matter. All the people that you are disappointed right now with. List as many people as you can.
So Deepa, what happens if somebody's disappointed at themselves?
Say that again?
I said, what happens if somebody's disappointed at themselves?
On themselves? That's fine. List your name too. Like if you are disappointed on yourself, right?
Just throwing it out there, you could be disappointed.
Godwin, are you copying my list? Because that's the first thing on my list.
Hey, Godwin, that's a great question, right? Like
Just throwing
this
it
can
out
be
there.
anybody.
Time up. 1 minute up, Deepa.
Awesome. This can be anybody. And again, like as we are going through this, right, presentation or session, add to that list, right? Like if somebody pops in your name, if somebody's name pops in your head, go ahead and add them. Okay. Yeah. And very well, like you had a good point, Godwin. People can be disappointed at themselves. Okay. No restrictions here, man. Awesome.
Pooja is talking about her spouse not doing the dishes. So
What if I'm only disappointed with myself because I do not have any right over anyone else? So how do I manage my expectations and how do I manage my relationship? And whether it's professional or personal, it's up to me. And that gives me absolutely no control or no authority of becoming disappointed with anyone else except myself.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a very, very, very valid point. So keep that in back of your mind. We will definitely address that. All right. Okay, cool. Awesome. So there are two ways we typically relate to other human beings in general, right? There are two different ways that we relate to other human beings. One is to have expectations, right? That's what we talked about right now. That's what we talked about John. And I'm sure with the activity that you all just did, that might have created a lot of ideas in your head, like about different people and different relationships in your life, right? Who all we have expectations about, especially, I want you to be honest when we are writing about these things, right? So is to have expectations, right? On the other hand, on the contrary, right, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, is to create agreements, right? Is to create agreements with people, right? And I'm going to delve a little bit more deeper into what is that, how is that going to look like, and how is that going to be a different choice compared to having expectations, okay? So this is how, in general, people relate to other people, to have expectations, or you can create agreements with people, right? This again, like this is not just in one specific area of our life. This can be applicable to any aspects of our life. That's the cool part about this. All right. So I'm going to, I know we hinted and we talked a little bit about expectations, but I'm going to go a little bit more deeper into that, right? So what are some of the outcomes, right? Like our things that can occur when people have expectations, right? When people have expectations on themselves or with others, right? Like mostly in general, people have expectations of others, right? If you're honest with ourselves. They are toxic in nature, right? Expectations are toxic in nature. Anybody care to share why they think that is?
Well, just like your John, who has an expectation on their subordinate, but then the person might not actually know what that expectation is, and so it kind of creates a gap between them, because this person is thinking he should know what I'm expecting, and this person is oblivious of what's going on. So the toxic environment coming from him, it's going to get towards the other guy who does not even have a clue what's going on. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a really, really valid point, because Godwin, thank you so much. What happens is when you have expectations on other people, right? Like even when you share them, right? Like here in John's case, not so much is being shared, it's just being expected. Even when it's being shared, I expect you to be this way or do this or find whatever, like fill in the blank, right? Like I expect you to fill in the blank, right? I'm sure you must have heard that kind of statement in your life if you're just being honest with yourself. I have plenty of times, right, in my life from other people. And I have done the same with other people too, seriously, right? I'm not a saint here. I'll tell you, this is a big learning for me, right? This was a big aha moment for me when I learned the difference between expectations and agreements, right? And how it changed my life for the better, to be honest with you. Previously, it was toxic because what happens is when you have an expectation of somebody and that's just not going well per your expectation, right? I'm just looking at Kemi right here, right? I expect Kemi to do this for me and she didn't do it for me, right? Where I'm now very disappointed, right? I'm very frustrated, and that is going to seep in me, right? I will keep remembering that, right? All the time. Like, boy, Kemi screwed me up here, right? Sorry, Kemi, I'm just, I'm just looking at the camera. Kemi screwed me up, wonderful person. She screwed me up, and that's going to build that toxicity, right? In me. In fact, that's going to translate the toxicity between the relationship she and I are going to have, right? So it is toxic, okay? I'm just going to look into, that feeling lingers. Yes, Pooja is saying that. And we make assumptions on people's behalf. Absolutely, Mary, right? Absolutely. Yes, Vivek, I love your point. You keep thinking of it on and again until it's met, right? That is something that we do. That's a human nature, right? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This happens a lot in workplace, right? You expect people to behave certain way, right? You expect your colleagues to be certain way, right? Like to know certain things, right? You expect, right? So that it's a fundamental thing that's how we see the other person. That's how we see the relationship, right? You expect something from that person, right? And yeah, you can also be setting yourself for failure when you have too much expectation. Absolutely, right? Absolutely, because what's going to happen is, you're going to be sorely disappointed here. Right?
Also, Pradeepa, I'd like to add something. When
Yes,
we're
ma'am.
expecting and doing something, we are wasting our time.
Yeah.
Because what we receive without expectation, that is the genuine thing.
Yeah.
And if we we keep some expectation, that means we wait for the result. We want that to
Yeah.
happen, and that the obstacle prevent us to be the genuine us. Like we cannot
Absolutely.
be authentic if
Yeah.
we have like this is the way unconditional love creates in relationship. People think it is not possible, but it is possible. It
Yeah.
is possible. It's still unconditional love exists between spouse, with children, even among friends.
Yeah.
That's the
Absolutely.
genuine beauty of the relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. But the opposite of that is it leads to toxicity, because like I think Vivek mentioned that, you just linger it you just keep it on, right? Like you think about it on and on, like why this is not happening, why this is not happening, I expect this person to be certain way, right? So definitely toxicity there. All right. And like we just talked about this, right? Like having expectations ruins chances, right? It definitely ruins chances for people to be in a good relationship, right? We just talked about few examples now, right? Because when the toxicity builds up, like how can a relationship be genuine and authentic and unconditional, right? It's definitely going to ruin your chances. This is very, very key, right? To understand expectations are one-sided. It's one person, it's John expecting his subordinate to behave certain way, to know certain things, to be certain way, to be a certain person, right? It's very, very one-sided, even if it's communicated, right? There are two types of expectations, I'll tell you, right? One is communicated expectations, right? I expect my subordinate to be on time for my meetings, right? That's communicated expectations. And the other one is, oh, we have the meeting at 8 o'clock. They should know, right? I expect them to come at 8 o'clock. I'm not going to tell them, right? So it's uncommunicated expectations, right? There are two types of expectations. One is communicated and the other one is uncommunicated, right? Both of them are bad, but uncommunicated expectations are even worse because it sits in somebody's head, right? And they haven't even opened their mouth and said anything to other person. I'll of course, I'm going to raise my hand. I'm going to share some personal examples of mine, right? On how I fell into that trap over and over again in my life, right? Uncommunicated expectations are the worst. And always remember, expectations is one-sided, is one person wanting or expecting something from the other person, right? Can be considered unreasonable, right? Let me ask you this question. How many of you would like to live up to somebody's expectation, right? Put yourself in that shoes, right? How many of you would like to be part of somebody's expectation, live up to somebody's expectation? Nobody, right? Like I can see some head nods here, right? Kemi, anything in the chat? Yeah.
Muted, sorry. Yeah, nothing about that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely, it can be considered unreasonable because, then it comes to, it's yours, right? I didn't agree to that, right? It's yours. So it's unreasonable. I can't meet it, right? I can't meet it, right? Think about a parent having an expectation on a child, right? And wanting them to behave a certain way. Godwin, go ahead, sir.
Actually, that was where I was going, because some of us from Africa and the other part of the world, we have these undue expectations from our parents, especially when it comes to education and career. And then some of us growing up, you didn't have a choice. You have three. In Nigeria, you have either to be a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer. Every other one is side job.
Yeah.
So, so when you don't meet that expectation, there's this onus on you that I'm failing my parents. They wanted me to be a doctor, but here I can't even pass chemistry. So what's going on? So that kind of now puts that burden on you to meet that expectation. So coming to where we talk about toxicity, I don't know if I can relate it to it. So I don't know, maybe you can help me in this aspect of it, because it's still going on. Some of us who are parents, even though we're here in the US, we still kind of try to sneak it into our kids, like, oh, you have to do this, even though we know that that is not the right thing to do. So just putting it out there.
Keep that thought for a bit, right? Like, how do I go about this? Yes, we will definitely cover that. But like you said, right? If every kid in this world who's born in Nigeria is a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, right? That's so much burden on that person, right? Who is receiving that, right? What if they don't want to be any of that, right? So it's definitely can be considered unreasonable. Often needs to be fixed later, right? Somebody doesn't meet the expectations, then the person who has the expectation, they have to go do some damage control, right? Whatever they expected, that's not happening. Okay, now I have to go fix it. Does that make sense? I have to now go fix it, right? Now I have to do the repairs here. Often leads to resentment, right? Often leads to resentment because the person who is hearing, like, okay, I expect you to become a doctor. And what if that person doesn't want to be a doctor and they want it to be something else, right? And if they end up being a doctor because they've been pushed into it, they're expected, right? They're going to resent it. Right? That's very, very key. It leads to resentment. And often it can end up in morale crisis, especially in work situations. Right? Think about the morale is going to be really low. Right? If you're often being expected, if you're often being, like asked to, you have to do this, you have to do this, right? Like I expect something of you. You have to constantly chase that, right? After some point, it's just going to be problematic with the morale itself. Does this make sense so far? You can share a simple yes, or somebody, if you want to unmute yourself.
Yeah, so we have yes from Nirav, and they're talking about adding Indians to what Godwin said as well.
Pooja, I can totally hear you there. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Very good. Awesome. This is the truth, right? People don't look forward to expectations, right? People do not, right? Even think about yourself. If you know somebody is expecting something of you, how does that make you feel, right? You don't like to be in that spotlight, right? Because it's reactive, right? Because you expect something from somebody and now they have to make it happen, right? It's very reactive. It's not creative. It's not created between two people. This happens especially in work situation, right? Fear-based, right? In John's scenario, right? That was a real story, by the way. I did not make it up. In John's scenario, the person who was, who John was talking about, who was put in performance plan later, right? It was very fear-based, right? If you don't do this, then you are going to be punished. And the punishment that this person got was the performance plan. Right? Now they have to work even harder for 3 or 4 or 5 months, whatever that is, to prove to John, right, they can meet John's expectation. right? It's very, very, very much fear-based. And last but not the least, it's cowardly. Anybody can take a guess on why I'm saying that, cowardly?
So now Wes is talking about expectation can lead to happiness sometimes, like winning a lottery.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Winning a lottery. Yeah, we may talk about it, right? But how many takes? What's the ratio there, right? Mary says like easy route. I'm assuming you're talking about the cowardly. Yeah, because it's avoiding confrontation and conflict.
Absolutely. Avoiding having those difficult conversations.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And also think about this, right? This one especially, I use this quite a bit in leadership development and coaching. It is cowardly because it allows a person to put the blame and responsibility completely on the other person, right? I expect A of you, and if A doesn't happen, it's on you, right? At any and all cost, you have to make A happen, right? So it's a very easy, I believe that's what Mary is talking about. Mary, if you want to unmute yourself, my dear, and speak a few words, if you can.
Absolutely. Avoiding, having difficult conversations, pushing it the other way. It's not my problem,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts.
Absolutely. You're spot on, Mary. You're spot on there, right? It's not my problem. I'm the one who get to have expectations, but you are the one who is supposed to, meet them, right? Even when I say that, how is that sounding? Right? It's very, very cowardly. I'm not taking any responsibility. It's on you. Everything is on you. But guess what? I can come and get to blame you if you don't meet it. Or I can feel disappointed in you if you don't meet it. Right? That's why it's very one way. Okay? So, and that's why I say it's cowardly. All right. So we are going to go back to a group discussion. So Kemi, maybe group of 3, please. And in this is what you're going to discuss, right? List from your own experience, maybe share an experience or two, because that's what is going to be really rich for you to deal with, to discuss with, right? If you know someone in your life has expectations on you, it's not you having expectations on somebody, right? Think about somebody having expectations on you, right? In any aspects of life, work, personal life, friends, it doesn't matter, family, it doesn't matter. What did that lead to? Take some notes, because I want you to come back from the activity and maybe we can discuss what are all some of the things that you all uncovered. Okay. So it's a group discussion. Maybe let me look at the time. 5 minutes, Kemi? 3 people in a room.
Sorry, I'm muted. Sorry, Pradeepa, don't move. Okay, just stay there.
Okay.
How many minutes?
5 minutes.
5 minutes. Okay. All right, off you go. Oh. Okay, I'm probably going to move this person to room 7.
There you are. Okay.
Found it?
Can I crave your indulgence? Shama was sharing something and we couldn't really get it. And I think it might be better. It might work for the better of the whole community to listen to that expectation. So
yeah.
Okay. So first of all, I want to say my camera is on one side and my big monitor is on the other side where it's projected. So don't. Okay, let me rather put it on the same so that I'm looking into it. So I was telling very interesting story of setting expectations with Godwin, and it's basically related to what he said. Like, you know, growing up in countries, different countries outside where parents put expectation. And I am from India, and my son, elder one, was born and studied till grade 3 in India before we came to Canada in Toronto. And from the very moment, right from the kindergarten, he said he wanted to be associated with aircraft. He loved. And so much so, in New Delhi, there is a school for Air Force officers, children. And it's very difficult for civilian people to go and get into that because it's either first Air Force, then other forces like Navy or Army, and then other highly connected people. Somehow we managed to get an interview for us to go there. And before we can even enter, and that interview board panel consists of one wing commander, 2 other people, like, you know, in their uniform sitting there and doing, before me and my wife can go, this 3.5-year-old person goes in that and start talking to that person about the aircraft model, which is kept on site. And in 5 minutes, he convinced everyone that he's the right person to be admitted in kindergarten. So that's his love. In Toronto, he finishes schooling, he gets into aerospace engineering. And 3 years, the third year, after completing 2 years and 1 more semester, so 2.5 years, he comes back and on the dining table discussion, he says, I want to quit. Now talk about expectations. What do you expect to do as a parent? We have never forced anything. But at the same time, when he said he wants to do something with flying and aircraft and all those things, we have been supporting him. And now he says, as a parent, what do we do?
Yeah.
And at that point of time, we decided and we talked and I convinced him to complete. And he did that, did not use it even for 1 day. He started a business. And I would say in 24, 25 months, he overtook my 25 years of earning potential in 2 years. Like he overtook me. He's earning more than what I'm earning.
Yeah.
And if that's a yardstick, I mean, it's not the yardstick for every other thing. But the point I'm making is sometime when we set up expectations and we set up objectives as to why we want this expectations and what are we expecting. So when I talked to him and I said, if you complete your undergrad, at least you'll be able to talk to people and people will take you seriously. Now, if you don't want to do engineering, you want to do anything else, you go back at least 1.5 years of your life. So if you want to start a small business or whatever you want to start, you would be behind. If you don't do that, and he gave all those big names, you know, Zuckerberg didn't complete a university, Bill Gates never completed university, blah, blah, blah. I said, that's good, but think of it this way, for every Zuckerberg, there are 1 million+ people who could not achieve and they drop out thinking that they can do something and they could not achieve.
Yeah.
So at least you have something as plan B, plan C, whatever back pocket thing you want to say. And he on that, so that's where the setting up of the expectations is more important. And that's where I come back to my original point, which I made, that one can only have a disappointment from themselves because you do not control others.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so when you were showing the other slide where, you know, why people take others' expectations like crowd, whether they are coward or fear, or I 100% relate to it.
Yeah.
But there is one more dimension which I want to add here is saying that people do not communicate the result of setting up of the expectation, and that's why the things fail.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I may allow to say.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sam, because I wanted to talk about a little bit later. We'll definitely hit on that, right? like what happens if somebody, we'll talk about agreements very, very soon, because that's the core of this topic itself, right? Like so far we've been talking about expectations and how it can leads to all the things that we talked about, right? And I'm sure, like maybe just in the chat window, right? I don't want it to take any more time. I'm looking at the time as well, but maybe put it in the chat window. What are all some things that you uncovered, right? About yourself, like what, I know we talked in my group that when we talked about like the person who was talking about it, he said like, you know, he had a really bad feeling, right? It was not a pleasant experience for him. So something like that, like what are all some of the things that you uncovered because about yourself that when you had expectations, right? So put them in the chat window there. In the meantime, I'll share a couple of personal stories, right? Like this is how expectations worked for me, right? This is somebody expecting something of me, right? Like I wanted to share a personal story. So growing up, when I was when I was young, I had a cousin. This is real, by the way, real story. I had a cousin who was of same age as me. So we grew up in different cities, but you know, we were in the same grade growing up, right? And cousin, he scores, like at least growing up in India, you're graded by number of marks that you score in exams, right? Like that's how people grade us. So you get like 85%, 90%, 100%, whatever that is, 70%, 60%. It ranged from 0 to 100% based on you answering questions in the exam. So we grew up together, right? Same age, going to, you know, same grades. Oftentimes I felt myself like my father especially, right? He didn't pose direct expectation on me, but I kind of got the pressure of like he always talks about how much my cousin scores, right? In important examinations. I see some head nods here, so I'm sure some of you are able to resonate with that, right? Like, oh, look at him, how much he scored. Like he seemed brilliant in this exam, in that exam, right? And what happened was, this has happened to me, right? Like throughout my school life, especially 10th and 12th grade are very important growing up in India, right? Those are public examinations. That will kind of decide your future as to where your path is going to go. I kind of really, to some extent, resented that, right? Resented not just being compared in a you know, not in a direct way, in an indirect way, but also it led me to, you know what, I'm not going to do well, right? I kind of took that and I kind of, you know what, like it's, you know, I don't want it to be compared to this person, so I'm just kind of giving up, right? I had this rebellious nature, which is probably not a great idea, but think about this kind of expectation, right, led me to not do well. And guess what? I scored okay in 10th grade and I scored okay in 12th, right? Like, and then I, you know, decided to wherever, you know, I actually got physics, right? Like that's my undergraduate study. I specialized in physics. That was one of my favorite subjects. So, but after that, like after we finished schooling, my cousin went on his different path. I went on the different path. There is no way we are in the same thing anymore. And my dad never talked about him anymore or what his grade, because there's nothing to compare. But what happened was, after that, I kind of felt like a sense of relief, like, thank God this is not happening anymore. I actually started tapping into my own true potential of what I can do with my studies, right? And I did really well in my undergraduation and my post-graduation, right? I graduated with honors, which is pretty good, actually. But so I just wanted to share this, right? Like how people take expectations and how it can lead, right? How it can lead their life sometimes. Sometimes drastic things can happen, right? I was able to revert back with my education in my graduation and post-graduation studies. But for some people, if you're in there for long enough, sometimes it can ruin people's life, right? Right? This one, a little bit, I want to keep this story very, very short, right? This is personal, right? This is personal. The previous story was somebody having expectations on me. In this one, this is where I had expectation on my partner. I'm sure many of you are able to relate to this, especially, right? So one of the things that I mean, I'm married for 20 years with my partner, right? Like loving person, wonderful person. But one thing that really, really annoyed me at the beginning of my marriage and for many years was my husband didn't meet my expectation of cleaning the bathroom sink after he trimmed his beard. Okay, I have a certain expectation on how the sink should look after, and that didn't meet, right? He didn't meet that expectation. And that actually, it may seem silly for some of you or many of you, but it was a big challenge for me personally, right? I was ruminating over this for so many times, right? Sometimes I yell, sometimes I tell him in a loud voice, sometimes I tell him like plead him, right? Any number of things. It didn't happen, right? It can be any number of things based on, right? It never happened, right? So it led to humongous disappointment for me personally, right? It led to humongous disappointment. So with this story that I wanted to introduce you to, there are only two possible outcomes, right? With expectations. Either you meet the expectations, right? Like when somebody has expectations, you meet it, right? Like my dad expects me to score 90%. I get 90%. Now, you know what? I expected, so what? Right? It's nothing. It's neutral, right? So what? I expected you and you did it. So what? What do we have to do? Or the other one, right? You do not meet, and which we talked about for almost a whole hour right now, right? It leads to disappointment. But guess what? Right? Expectations are not necessary at all with anybody in your life, right? Do not have any expectations, just like Nasima mentioned earlier, right? Don't expect anything from anybody, right? And guess what? Anything the other person do, you'll be pleasantly surprised, right? That's the cool thing, right? The other day, a few days ago, I was feeling a little bit ill, right? Not COVID or anything like that, just a little bit under the weather. And I was sitting downstairs, and my husband, right? I wasn't expecting anything. It was almost dinner time, right? My husband actually nicely put together the dinner for me in the plate, and he prepared everything, and he kind of, came and gave it to me, right? Because I was very pleasantly surprised. I did not expect anything at that time, right? And that was such a joyous feeling, right? To be pleasantly surprised because you're not expecting anything. And if something happens, right? Wow, that's great. Thank you so much, right? So try and see how you can eliminate expectations in your life and be ready to be pleasantly surprised, right? Because when you don't have expectations, you can easily forgive others, right? Like the forgiving attitude comes very, very quickly to you, right? Now you have a very high esteem, okay? Self-esteem is going to be really, really high. And you forgive yourself so that you're not caught up in why this person is not doing this, why this person is not doing this. You're able to move forward quite quickly. Isn't that what we all want, right? In any relationship, we want it to move forward. We don't want it to be held back. We don't want it to be stuck, right? And having no expectations is a way of life, actually. It's definitely a way of life. And I wanted to give this as like a homework for all of you, right? Be ready to be surprised. Don't have expectations, at least for a day, at work and life, everywhere, right? And see how many times you're being surprised by that, right? When somebody does something, right? that gives you quite a bit of joy, right? And it moves you away from resentment. All right. So we talked about expectations all along. I want you to introduce to the aspect of agreements, right? Expectation is a one-way street, one person expecting something of the other. On the other hand, agreements is co-created by two people, right? It's a creative way, right? How you and I are going to work together, how you and I are going to deal with this problem, right? It's about two people coming together to the table, creating, recreating, negotiating, co-creating. It's just like two people co-authoring a song, right? It's done by two people. It's like John and his subordinate are sitting together and talking about, hey, can we agree on this, right? I want you to fill in the blanks. And can we agree on this? If the person says, yes, I agree, that's great. Now, because it's two people conversing now, it's not one person expecting, it gives the other person an opportunity to say no, why they cannot agree on that, or what they need from the other person, right? It's not about like, yeah, I'm throwing an expectation at you and you go figure it out. Yeah, I'm putting something in the middle, right? Like I want you to come to the agreement. Let's agree on something, but it's not just on you. How can I help you to make this happen, right? What do you need from me, right? Or what is doable? What can we negotiate? That's why it's negotiating, right? What can we negotiate? That's such a lovely way of two people coming together. It's co-created. That's the key. And if somebody says like I cannot do this, or I cannot meet this deadline, or I cannot make this happen by Friday, you will at least know that. You are not just sitting with an expectation that the work will be done by Friday. And when that is not done by Friday, you're not getting disappointed. This is a great opportunity to know things up front, because you're giving the other person in a very courageous way to say, sorry, this cannot be done. If it had to be done, these 5 things have to occur. At least you know that. Now, based on that conversation, you can make whatever you need to do, right? You can make adjustments, right? You're explicitly asking for what you can count on. And that is not cowardly, that is courageous, right? So agreements, the key here is it's very creative in nature. Actually, it's very fun. If you get used to this, right? It's really, really fun creating agreements with people, right? To a degree where it becomes like, wow, like I have this agreement, right? How can I, because everybody is going to be different. And sometimes you need to have explicit agreements with different people. I've seen that over and over again in my life, right? I'll tell you where all I have agreements, right? I have agreements with my partner. Now my bathroom sink chronicles is a story in the past, right? We have agreements. I dropped all my expectations because it was bothering me so much, and I wanted my husband to keep the bathroom in a certain way. We talked about it, right? In a time that was good for both of us, not when I was angry and frustrated, right? That's a key. Don't react when you have an emotion that's strong, right? Take time. Okay, hey, Sai, can we talk about the bathroom? It's really important for me, you know. Would you please take a little bit more care next time, you know, when you're trimming your beard, and make sure that you clean these parts, please. Can we agree on that? Right? And to be honest with you, that worked like magic. I struggled with that for like 16, 15 years, seriously. in my 20 years of marriage. That one conversation, not yelling, not throwing tantrums, not, slashing the door, right? None of them worked. Having that simple agreement worked. I have agreements with my son, right? Sometimes he tend to take it like he will say something and like, yeah, mom, this has to be an agreement. No, it doesn't work that way. It's co-created, right? I have agreements with my 8-year-old. The first thing that I do when I join my new job is to have an agreement with my boss. I introduced this concept with her. She's an executive. We agreed on how our conversation is going to be, how our transparency, communication, data, right? When I want help from her, what she needs from me, right? All those things, right? I'm a coach. I have clients. I have private clients. I take almost 90 minutes or so with each of my client whenever we start our relationship, professional relationship, to create agreements, right? How are we going to work together? What is this relationship going to look like? And again, remember, these are not set in stone, right? These can be updated as you are seeing new things in your relationship. It's not like one-time deal and throw it in the shelf and you forget about it. No. You visit them, you revisit them, and when a new circumstance that's not addressed, you add them to your agreement. When something didn't work out between me and my client, right? For one thing, I never want any of my coaching clients to be driving or on the move when they are coaching with me, right? I never used to have explicit agreement like that. But when I heard one of my client was driving really fast in Miami, going, hey, Pradeepa, let's get going. I'll be home in 20 minutes. Boy, where are you? I'm driving. Let's do it. Now, moving forward, I had agreement like, okay, we're not talking right now. I'm not going to be coaching you right now. Let's do it moving forward. Like, go home, call me. And from that point on, that was an explicit agreement, right? Use situations to advise you on what agreements you need to create with the person, right? Coach your team. I even have agreements with my neighbor, right? They opened up the fence wall one day without telling us completely, right? And then they came about, I went back, like if it were me 5 years ago, I would have been really like, how dare you kind of a deal, right? But then I cooled down, like, okay, what is an opportunity here for me? Okay, that happened. I cannot go back and change in the past. And I don't want to dwell in that too. Any of us have to work on each other's side. Can we let the other person know? Right? So agreements can be created with anybody for that matter. Right? It's very, very powerful. Try it. You don't have to trust me for that. You try it and start simple. It doesn't have to be like pages and pages. Start with simple few things and see how it works. And the key is you're co-creating with the other person. It's not like you just telling the other person, but you're capturing it in a document. No, it's not. It's co-creating, right? What if somebody is not adhering to the agreement? I know some people are asked this question early, right? Question the agreement. This is a great opportunity, right? Now go back and question the agreement. It's not about questioning the person like, boy, why you didn't do this? You suck. Like, how can you do this? What kind of a person are you? It's not that, right? What do we miss? What did we miss capturing? What else needs to be here that is not here yet? Right? It's a wonderful opportunity to go back and challenge the agreement and see what needs to be updated and what else needs to be co-created. Okay? That's why it's a relationship opportunity. And think about when you do all this, right? It creates a very trusting relationship with the other person. Relationship improves drastically. It doesn't matter who it is. It's very professional in nature. Even if it's personal, it doesn't matter. Right? So I'm not sure. Maybe take this as a homework.
Yeah,
we have time for a group
we don't
activity.
have time
Yeah.
left. Yes.
Yeah, take this as a homework, right? I know you wrote a list of people, right? Like you're disappointed, right? Go back to that list and pick few people from that list and think about, in this list, who are all the people that I can immediately benefit from having some agreements, whatever those agreements are, right? And how are you going to do that? And start thinking about what will that agreement be, right? What will that look like? What are all some of the things that you wanted to talk to that person about, right? This can be with your boss, this can be with your colleague, this can be with your partner, this can be with your child, this can be with the family. It doesn't matter, right? How do you want it to turn having that expectation and the disappointment into a good relationship by having agreements? Okay, this is again a homework for all of you. So final thoughts, right? We talked a lot about how much having expectations lead to disappointment, right? How much it can ruin relationship, right? On the other hand, having co-created mutual agreements, right? It leads to better relationship. Again, agreements are not like a one-way street, it's mutual, right? It's not you telling the other person like, yeah, I want us to agree on this, right? I want us to agree on something, right? And this is the matter at hand. What would you think, right? How would you, how would you respond? Ask for the response, right? Let them say yes or no, right? Or maybe, right? And talk through that. And that's where the creativity comes in play here, right? Because you do get to create, right? You do get to be creative here. Because not everything that you say, the other person, if you're giving a good space, right? Especially if you're in a person of authority, right? In that relationship, make sure the other person feels safe to say no. That's really key, right? If you're a boss wanting to create an agreement with your employee, and even though you may use the word agreement, that person may not understand what that agreement is. And that they can say like, no, I can't do that, or this is not going to be possible. You have to let them know that saying no is okay, or not right now, or can we do this? Like, I need help. Like, those are all fine, right? That's on you. Make sure that you create that space like that, right? And lead a life with no expectations and willing to be pleasantly surprised, right? That's really, really key. Yes, absolutely. I'm just looking at all the comments here.
Yeah.
Ongoing re-examination is key. Absolutely. Can you please turn back the homework? I couldn't capture it. Here you go. If you wanted to capture the homework here. So Kemi, I actually sent you an email with the link there.
That's right.
If you can post the link here for our audience. And is there a way, I know some of them dropped off earlier. Is there a way to send a message to all of them?
Yeah, I can, because you're going to send me the PDF of your slides.
Okay.
I will, when the video recording is done downloading, I would forward it to everybody, even those who didn't attend.
Yeah, absolutely. So I just, Kemi just put a Google Doc here. This is something that I wanted to do for you all, right? I've opened up 8 spots in my calendar for all the attendees from today. So I have put on my time and go click the Google Doc. You should be able to see the document, and feel free to, if you wanted to have a coaching conversation with me, I have suggested some times and dates that I'm available, and I blocked my calendar for this room. So please feel free to put your name. That way I'll be able to access and I can connect with you. And if any of those times doesn't work for you, I have a section below. Please put your information there and I'll find a way to make it work for us. Okay. This is something that I wanted to do for your community. I hope this was useful for you all. I hope you learned something that that is not only useful for your work, but also useful for your life. This is such a small and a simple thing that you can immediately implement, right? Like you can immediately implement. It's just about having that conversation with the person, right? If we are not connected, feel free to connect with me. And again, Kemi, the Google Docs link is here. I will send that to you separately too. I'll make a PDF of this conversation, of this, deck that I presented today, and you can send it to all the attendees from today.
Yes, thank you so much, Deepa. This has been awesome. Well, you're full of awesomeness anyway. So little things, like you said, makes a difference. And these are things that we know, but we don't just think about it to do it. So thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, you're very, very welcome. And I really enjoyed it. I just want to wish everybody a safe holiday season. Please be safe and take care. And I look forward to, connecting with you all at some point in my life. Take care, everybody. Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and see you in the new year.
Yes. Bye.
Happy
New Year. Cheers, guys. Kemi, Deepa, thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you, Basir. Thank you, Nasima.
Thank you, Pradeepa.
Thank you, Hicham. Thank you.
Thank you. It was really insightful. Thank you.
You're very welcome, Godwin. Thank you for your participation, sir. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pradeepa. Looking forward to talk to you through your sheets.
Awesome, dear. Looking forward to.
Bye.
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 Bye, everybody.
Bye, Kemi. Bye.
Bye-bye.